releasing the hostages and bringing them home alive is the first priority for the government, for the country, and the dismantling of Hamas is the long-term goal that hopefully we'll achieve as well.
Now to the latest on Israel's war with Hamas. The U.S. State Department says that nearly 24 Americans have been killed in the conflict, including 21 who served in the Israeli Defense Forces. Meanwhile, Israel says almost 200 Israeli soldiers have died in the war so far. As Israel continues to pound Gaza, concerns are increasing about the safety of the approximately 108 hostages that Hamas is believed to still be holding in Gaza. And there's an active debate in Israel about trying to balance the safety of the hostages against the priorities of the war effort. We're joined now by Moshe Lavi, a former Israeli Defense Forces captain whose brother-in-law is being held hostage by Hamas. Moshe, thank you for joining us, and we hope and pray that you and your family are safe.
Thank you so much, and good evening to everyone.
Moshe, take us back that day. What was your family initially told about what happened to your brother-in-law October 7th?
Yeah, October 7th was a terrible day for our entire family. My immediate family all live on the Israel-Gaza border, so they all experienced to a level of degree the atrocities committed by Hamas and their accomplices. At one point that day, we lost contact with my sister Lishai and Omri, my brother-in-law, and for about 10 hours we did not know what has happened to them. And we found out that evening that Omri was taken hostage by Hamas, and that luckily my sister Lishai and two baby nieces, Roni and Alma, were rescued by the IDF in the evening of October 7. And it was a great shock, of course, for all of us. We were starting to grapple with the realities of what has happened everywhere in southern Israel that day. And but we were grateful my sister and two nieces survived.
Yeah, certainly thank God for that. Israel is fighting a war in Gaza at the same time as it's trying to free the hostages. You were a former IDF soldier and are watching the events play out in real time. Share with us how that impacts your thoughts of the moves that are being made with the tie-in that your brother-in-law is still being held hostage. How are you balancing those two things?
I'm not a military strategist. I served for 6 years, and of course I understand why Israel was required to defend itself after it was invaded by Hamas and their accomplices on October 7. And Hamas did not simply attack military bases that day. It targeted communities, towns, kibbutzim, including the one my sister and my brother-in-law live. And so the counter-offensive is understandable. What we as families try to emphasize to the public officials, whether in Israel, we meet them all the time, whether around the world, also here in the US, in Washington, D.C., is to ensure that there is a balance when it comes to saving the hostages' lives, ensuring that they return to their families alive, and having Israel being committed to what public officials stated clearly since the beginning of the war, that releasing the hostages and bringing them home alive is the first priority for the government, for the country, and the dismantling of Hamas is the long-term goal that hopefully we'll achieve as well. But we have to ensure that we bring them home first.
Moshe, can you share with us how your family has coped and how your sister continues to press on with those two sweet nieces despite the waiting game of news about your brother-in-law?
Yeah, it's been an ongoing nightmare for our family, just like the many other families that are grappling with the reality of having a hostage. But we're doing all we can to ensure that our family stays intact and together. Everyone was displaced that day as well. So we're dealing with the trauma of surviving the attacks that my other sister, my parents, who were there that day. I was in New York, on October 7th. I didn't experience it firsthand, only through the virtual communication with my family. So we're dealing with displacement, we're dealing with the trauma And of course, my nieces all experienced being captive for hours because they were held captive in their own home by Hamas terrorists. So we try and ensure that they get the support they need, professional support, and of course the care and warmth from us, the family members and friends of the family. But at the same time, my sister, she's a brave and strong woman. She's advocating every day for her husband Omri. She goes on meetings. She traveled to Europe as well. And only today she published a beautiful piece on CNN, writing a letter to Omri, publishing her thoughts and her feelings, sharing the pain and the hope. So we move between the pain and the concern to the hope that Omri will return. And we have to hold to that hope. We have to continue pray. We have to continue act so that Omri will return, and we do it every day, and only strengthen us to do it and strengthen us to see the public rallies behind us as well.